Good afternoon and welcome to Driven Women TV. Hi, I'm your host, Marie Younger Blackburn, producer of Driven Women TV. Driven Women TV was created to further the message of Cape Cod's Conference for Women. Cape Cod's Conference for Women's mission is to bring women together under one roof to share useful and relevant information that they can use to go out and to be the change in their own business, their own families, and more importantly, their own communities. I'm here today with my guest, Cindy Barg, and Cindy is an author. She's an international public speaker. She is a psychotherapist, just to name a little bit about Cindy. She's the author of this wonderful book, But the Heavens Never Cried. So today we're going to have a conversation with Cindy. What we do on Driven Women TV is that we promote business and professional women around Cape Cod and the surrounding areas. Because what I've found during Driven, Cape Cod's Conference for Women, that there is so much here. And we have everything we need right here. And the more I do this kind of work and the more I seek talent for our conference, what I find is just amazing. So Cindy, do you want to just tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. Many years ago, I decided I would go on to this beautiful pilgrimage to really help people, and it was through a lot of tragedy that my family endured that I realized that my journey was to really get out and to help people. So my goal was to really help others transcend pain and loss, and through a lot of humility, which I think you can never have enough of, I hope with great humility that I help people find grace in their healing process. So what I did originally was set up a healing center and employed different modalities of people ranging from Reiki masters and acupuncturists and massage therapists, and I was a psychotherapist. And we would really bridge the gap by allowing these people to come to all these modalities to help them heal, because I believe the body becomes the vehicle to house all the emotional pain. And we need everything to work, the physical, the spiritual, and the mind. And so that's where I started, and then eventually went out on the road to speak and wrote a book after a horrific tragedy that I endured as well. And that's where it all started.
Mm-hmm. Perfect, yeah. And it's just no coincidence how we met and how we came together. We hold weekly meetings to do the planning for Cape Cod's Conference for Women, and you showed up at one of our meetings, and you also sent me a proposal to be a speaker at Cape Cod's Conference for Women. And just reading and looking at your tapes, I was fascinated, as I am with a lot of women who send things in to me. And I'm just so glad that we met, because our interactions and our conversations have been so rich and so eye-opening. So I just want to share some of our conversations with our audience today and let them know of the good work that you're doing and of the things that you've learned along your journey of loss. I just thought it was really timely, because I look for headlines, what's relevant in the on the news, or I ask women, what would you like to see at Cape Cod's Conference for Women? And one middle-aged woman said to me, and she's new to the conference, she bought her ticket really early. She said, I'd like to see something on loss. And on, she said, because women don't know how to process loss, whether it is from employment or a physical loss, the loss of a loved one. We really have a lot of trouble, dealing with that, processing that, healing from that, moving on. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Well, and I think in our society, Marie, so many people are not given the opportunity to really grieve. It's grief comes and goes like the seasons, and we can never really, I don't think, ever be prepared, whether it's an illness or a horrific death or a tragedy. We're never really prepared. And I think we're often told as women to be nurturers and to constantly uphold the root of so many things. We cannot be super women all the time, even though we may be driven. But if we don't touch base with our emotions, at some point, it's going to come back 1,000-fold, and we're either going to get sick or we're going to get depleted, and it's just not accepted. And I also think people have a very difficult time with the concept of death. It's a cycle of life, and we have to embrace it. And if we're allowed to really grieve and take the time to do that, it becomes a little bit easier to embrace, whether it's tragedy or illness or whatnot. But people need to be open, and we have to be also gentle on ourselves and give ourselves time to heal and make ourselves a priority in that grieving process.
Sure. Do you currently have a practice where you practice this work, and where can we find you?
I do. I have a practice in Sandwich, Massachusetts, and I practice right in the center of town, and all different hours, so people can either get in touch with me directly through phone or email. And I do have a site. My website is www.gettingbeyondlifestuff.com, so they can always reach me there as well.
Sure. So life stuff. So all
Yes.
life stuff, not just physical loss, but also other.
It could be divorce, it could be loss of a job, loss of a pet. So many things encompass what loss is.
I recently had a friend reach out to me because they know we have the Driven Women Network and that we're growing every day. Women are finding us and joining our movement, which is to, basically collaborate and serve with one another. So it's been really great. But one friend knew of what we're doing, and she met a woman that suffered a job loss. After 23 years, I think she was let go from a significant job loss. And the woman is changed. She said she hasn't known her long, but she knows she's hurting deeply. So she referred her to me, and the woman connected with me, sent me an email, and she said, I'm hurting, or she just said, I can't find my way out of a paper bag right now. So I said to her, well, listen, we have a network of women that can help you kick your way out of that bag, because together we can do so much more, so I'm just glad to have you as part of our team. Really, we're together, and there's so much that you can share with us and other women about what you do.
Thank you.
I read a quote in one of your publications that you had, and it says, like pain, hope is boundless. If you are not doing something out of love, pure intent, and absolute truth, then you are not fulfilling your greatest, I can't read my own writing, your greatest potential, it says, to be who you truly are. Yeah, so talk about that.
Well, and I'll go back to the example of this woman who lost her job, and especially as we become older, it's very difficult. I think in our society, we are often placed value on what we do as opposed to who we are. And so we invest so much time putting in the work and having the expectations that we have to do everything really well, when in fact we're not really always following our true path. And I think if we can become more authentic and really listen, because all our answers lie within, then the universe has a brilliant way of providing us with what we really need. But in her case, it's a grieving process. She invested, and she did her job very well, and then being let go is such a lack of validation for everything that she did do. But I think it's really about, if we're not living to our true potential in the sense of living our authenticity and being true to who we are, we often get a lot of painful consequences. And it's important that we live our authenticity and be okay with being who we are, but not so much what we do.
Sure. And I think the older we get, don't you, that we come to that realization that now it's time. I think right now where I'm at, it's time for me to live my true self. Bringing Cape Cod's Conference for Women is just a outlet for who I think I've always been, and really had not the opportunity to be that, but to be a leader amongst women, to be someone who causes some change in their community and their environment, to be someone who is creative, and I just want to pause for a moment and just give some accolades to my son, Chef Ralph Younger, who created the set design. All the beautiful set design that you see every week is Chef Ralph Younger, who's also the owner of Simply Black and White Catering, and he's our director for this show, one of the directors. So I just think it's fabulous today.
Yes, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
it's so pretty.
Yeah. But just to be able to live my authentic self right now and to be creative, I think that's the outlet that Cape Cod's Conference for Women. It's a lot of work, but it's such a creative outlet for me. So I just want to know, who are you, Sandy Barg?
Oh my goodness, what a question. Well, I think I can go back and say, when I was a young girl, and I'll answer that question for you, in relationship to what I'm going to say. I endured a lot of tragedy. I grew up in an incredibly loving home, though, and so that was a very special place. But given the tragedy, I don't think I would have given witness or understood that there are many gifts in the struggle. And it's very hard to ascertain that while we're going through it. So, I mean, I was always a free spirit and, you know, always had a strong will to live life very passionately. And I think as we become older and we have certain goals and we pursue them and we become mothers and we raise kids, we get distracted because it's easy to forget who we become. But who I am today is a woman, I think, of great integrity and great humility. And I've learned that it's important to just like who we are and not censor everything. I think who I am is somebody who recognizes the beauty of the grace of who we are, and I guess my greatest joy is being able to help others as long as I don't lose myself in the process. Sure. And I think, in a nutshell, who am I? Still emerging. I think the older I get, the less I know, and it's a journey, right? It's a journey, and I'm always open to what's coming next.
I hear a lot of wisdom in what you say, to say that as long as I don't lose myself in the process, that comes with some experience, I think, because you don't learn that unless you've experienced losing yourself in the process, and I can relate to that. And, you know, I just learned a lot at the MASS conference for women that I attended last week, and the speaker that I had the pleasure of escorting and hosting was a guy named Andy Glass, and he talked about being givers or takers. And that's a statement a giver would recognize, because sometimes when you give and you put yourself out there, you don't leave room for self.
Very true.
Yeah,
very
so that's
true.
very, you know, a life lesson that it seems that you have learned early, and if a lot of women would learn that, because we are such givers and such nurturers, I think it would bode us well to learn that. I'm learning that as I go on and connect with so many other women, that there's so many needs that you want to fill or you think you can fill, but you have to self-care as well.
And I think, you know, it's interesting because, you know, I don't know if I learned it so early. I think I was just such a free spirit and enjoyed life, but as you know, several years back I got really ill because I've always given. It's just what I enjoy doing. But I also feel part of that illness was a wake-up call for me to stop and step back and also look at myself as a priority. And I think it's very easy to constantly give, but to not see ourselves as a priority. And the illness, in a sense, became a gift because it really enabled me to start taking care of me from an emotional standpoint. And I think that's equally as important. And if we're going to be givers, we have to know how to give to ourselves first. Right.
So I want to go back a little bit,
Yes,
because
please.
I think the audience missed that part about your illness, and there's just a process of your life that I've learned about you since knowing you. And the book is, again, But Heaven Never Cried. And I want to talk about the book, and I want to talk about your experiences in loss in your life, because it is significant. And I think if there's someone out there who can find some hope in Cindy's story, in Cindy's journey, then that would be just great. So, you know, your story, part of your story, part of your journey was a significant loss in your life and a horrific accident that happened to your entire family.
Yes,
and your
correct.
journey, and I think what you've learned and how you healed from that process, because you had very significant ramifications: the loss of your father, the loss of your health, words that were spoken over you in that time. You'll
Correct.
never walk, you'll never have children, and then to look at you today and where you are, on the cusp of becoming a grandmother tonight.
Yes.
Your daughter
My first grandchild
will give
coming
birth tonight.
Which is a
you
good
know,
thing
Thank you.
for all of us.
Yeah. So just take the audience through
time?
your journey and what
Sure.
happened in that time.
Sure. When I was 13 years old, we were in a really tragic car accident. We were going on our way to Maine. My father, and just to back up a little bit, my parents were told that they would never be able to have children after having me. And my older brother was about 17 months older, so it was my brother Michael and then myself. And my parents tried and tried and tried, and they never were able to conceive. And the doctor says, you really couldn't, but we never really knew why. Then years later, we were heading on, planning a trip to go to Maine, and my father was thrilled because he was an only child, and they announced that they were pregnant. And my mother was around 36, my father was 42 at the time. And we were thrilled. I was 14, my older brother was 15. So that was really a miracle in itself. So my mother at that time was around 3 months pregnant. We were heading on our way to Maine, and somewhere into the night, and I don't remember the accident at all, perhaps that's the gift and not knowing really what happened, but someone hit us head on at 100 miles per hour going the opposite way, and my father was going 50 miles an hour. And my father apparently took the brunt of the accident because he saw it. I don't remember anything about it. And I wound up at Massachusetts General Hospital along with my older brother, and my mother was in a different hospital because it happened in Exeter, New Hampshire. And apparently they flew us, the children, there because we were not going to make it. Now my mother was pregnant. Eventually they flew her over to Mass General, and she wound up spending her time because they had only one room available for my mother, and that was sharing it with a nun who was going in for surgery. And my mother was, again, probably at that point close to almost 3 to 4 months. And they came into my mother, and this is, I found this out a few years later after we left the hospital, but they said, Mrs. Barg, I'm really sorry, but your husband is dead, your dog is dead, your older son only has a 50% chance of living, and your daughter only has a 15% chance of living. And your daughter will never walk again and never be able to have children. So, you know, pass forward a little bit here, or push forward, and I walked out of that hospital 4 months later, and I was on crutches, but I walked very slowly, and my brother and my mother were released about a month and a half earlier, but they were beside me as we walked, and there were hordes of doctors and nurses applauding us because they never thought none of us would ever come out of this accident. And the irony in all of this is that I think my mother was 6 months pregnant when we left the hospital. 3 months later, she gave birth to the most beautiful, perfect, healthy little boy.
Sure.
And it was just a miracle. And we have to believe in them, right? Every day. I believe in miracles.
Sure.
So as time goes on, and you know, we settled in, and I wound up going to high school around 3 months late because I was learning how to walk again and being tutored at home. And once I got back to high school, I became myself, you know, so I don't think I would have recognized the impact of that accident at such a young age. But as I got older, it was very apparent to me that my mother was incredibly strong in raising 2 kids on her own and then having a newborn. And how did she survive losing a man she really loved? This was the love of her life. And many years later, in 1995, my brother was tragically murdered, and it was just a horrible thing for our family. It was so surreal. And I don't think we ever really got over it, but there's something that we have to get on with it, and that's the hard part. And I lost a very close friend 2 years, I was many years prior to that also, which absolutely devastated me. So it became a cycle of a pattern that there was so much tragedy, and my former sister-in-law was diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor the week before my brother was murdered, and she died 6 months to the date after my brother's death. So it was just so much tragedy. But what I've learned is to love even greater and to have compassion, because that's what we have. It's the only thing that heals in this lifetime. And there are, again, tremendous gifts in the struggle, but very difficult to ascertain when we go through it.
That's just a lot. It is a lot. I just want to pause and just give you just a moment of just recognition for that, just strength, the incredible strength in the journey that you and your family, you know, got through that your mother sounds like an amazing driven woman, and I mean that with all respect, you know, but just the impact of losing a husband alone, but then having 2 ill children that have some need, some physical need and emotional need to heal, and then compound that with a baby in your belly. To me, that represents hope in a future.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And then to be able to carve out enough time for self is tremendous. And, you know, in a lot of ways that describes woman to me. You know, the regality in this purple that we have all the time, in the strength of a woman, that we are, you know, we're called multitaskers. But that's multitasking to the 10th degree. But we not only physically multitask in the things that we do, but we multitask in our emotions, you know, that we balance both pain and joy at the same time, you know. And we sometimes put a mask on that, right? When we're feeling pain to be able to keep going on, and often for other people at our expense. So we do that for our children. We do that for our jobs, our communities. We put on that good face and keep going forward, you know. But hope, you know. But that new baby coming, right? Something to live for.
Absolutely.
So that is the joy and all, in the capacity to love, to continue to love and to give love and to give away what you've learned. I think that's what you do in your work, work as a international speaker and an author. You know, this book, I know, I can't wait to get home and to get into it. You know, it's cathartic, not only for you, but for others.
Absolutely. And it definitely was cathartic for me. And I just want to go back, because you've touched on something that you said, Marie, that we oftentimes put on that face. And when we had gotten back from the hospital, my mother had still, I was raised Jewish, so it is imperative that you get rid of all the clothes within a week to be able to give to other people. And I'm not really sure why, to be perfectly honest with you, but I remember watching my mother. She didn't see me. She was in the back room, and she had opened up the closet, and it was all my father's clothes, and she was sobbing and holding the sleeve of her jacket next to him, and it was so poignant, and it still moves me to this day. And I realized, even at 13, the struggle and the feelings and emotions that my mother probably had to hold in to survive as a parent for us must have been absolutely devastating. And I don't think I really was impacted to the full extent of that until I got older and really understood maybe her grace and her pain.
Yes, yes, yes. And now you have 2 daughters of your own.
I do.
Can you tell me what kind of advice, or what do you teach your daughters?
You know, here's what I believe, and I know it sounds, I really believe God gave me great kids. I believe that our kids, you know, sometimes choose us coming into these beautiful families, and or not so beautiful families all the time, but I think I think the one thing I really instilled in them was tolerance and acceptance. And I've never seen my girls ever be competitive with one another. In actuality, they've always been supportive, and they each have their individual talents. And also, humor is very big for all of us. We laugh a lot, even if we don't even know why. Sometimes it's just a great healer. But I think anything is just acceptance, and be authentic, be okay being who you are. Nobody can take away their integrity. So I think if anything, it's just coming from a very loving and embracing home, and they're able to nurture that within themselves as well. But tolerance is important.
Awesome. Yeah, you must be some woman and some mom to be able to have daughters who are not competitive and to own their own things and their own talents, and that's you know, sort of the mission of Cape Cod's Conference for Women, that we would empower one another to inspire and collaborate with one another and work together, and see that there's something in you that I need, something that you need from me, and if all things are equal and good, we could work together. And we don't have to feel threatened about sharing our our contacts, our knowledge with one another, that we could stand firm on who we are, you know, and what we both can bring to the table. And that's the exciting thing. And I'm just really happy to hear that you have 2 daughters that have that. I can't say that I grew up with, I have 4 sisters, 3 Irish twin type, you know, sisters, and we actually were banned from watching the Three Stooges growing up because we were the bonky on the head, and just a little confrontational with one another. And we grew, you know, out of some of those things, and we're very, very different, you know, but we have our strengths, but not mixing it up wasn't one of them. So,
well, I think the one thing I've learned as a parent, and it's so true, is we only borrow our children, we don't own them. And they also present wonderful lessons, I guess, for me as a parent, you know, the things that I really learned through them, and they may not nearly be as cognizant of their wonderful contribution to me. However, now that my daughter is expecting a child, at any moment now, hopefully she'll understand that more as she becomes a parent.
Yeah.
You know?
So if you haven't heard, Cindy is going to be a grandmother this evening. Her daughter is being induced, and she will be a grandmother. Do you know the sex of the child?
She is. Her little girl. Her name is going to be Felicity Claire.
Oh. Nice.
So we're waiting to see her, and we just saw an actual I was going to say a video, but an ultrasound, and she's there like, waving her hands, almost like, I'm really happy in here. You know, I'm really kind of happy, but she's quite a bit late. So the process is going to begin, and we just are sending blessings.
So yet another generation of wonderful Barg women who can, you know, hold her own strength and know who she is. That's exciting.
It is. And well, my daughter, I think, will definitely empower her to love who she is, and I think it will all work out. So I feel very grateful for this.
Sure. And for someone who was not supposed to have children. Yeah. I know a little something about someone speaking something over you. When I had my son Chase, he's 11 years old and he has Down syndrome, and all I heard in the hospital from one particular nurse, she was like the directive nurse, well, he'll never have, you know. And on the way out of the hospital, again, she's running down the hall after my mother and I, after seeing the incredible strength of love.
Yes.
Of all
Power of love.
All the people who came to visit Chase, that held Chase, that loved and nurtured, and just the fight that Chase had to, you know, he's still in infancy in the crib, you know, at birth. And this woman's telling us what he won't be. And leaving the hospital, she ran down the hall saying, I'll see you at Chase's college graduation, you know. So she became a believer, the believer in the power of love, I think. Because Chase is an incredible human being today and will do many things, you know.
And how beautiful is that? What a winning combination, yes? The power of love and the belief. I mean, it's wonderful. And I don't think, even as women, we have to really believe in ourselves as well, and to have that faith. And I think it's often easy to lose that at times. Sure. You know, with all the challenges we go through. Sure.
And I'm just so glad that this year you'll be present at
Yes, I'm so
Conference
excited.
for Women.
So excited.
And we'll be there with hundreds of women. We have capacity for 400 women to come together under one roof and share useful, relevant information. There's so much networking that goes on at Cape Cod's Conference for Women. You can find us at www.capecodsconferenceforwomen.com, and tickets are available. We have an amazing lineup of speakers. This year's theme will be women who make a difference in the lives of others, much like Cindy here. We have the leading women CEOs and executive directors of Cape Cod's nonprofits who will be on our opening panel, as well as a host of other speakers in the areas of networking and branding, leadership, finance, to name a few, social media. So we just have so much rich things. We have wonderful area vendors who will be there for a lot of good shopping and information. We'll have things on education and business development. So there's still opportunities to sponsor or become a vendor with Cape Cod's Conference for Women. It is coming up on March 10th at the beautiful Seacrest Resort. So Cindy, I'm just so glad that you are here today. I'm glad that you will be a part of Cape Cod's Conference for Women, and that I hope that women can find you. Tell us again where you're located.
I'm in Sandwich, right in the center of town, and you can certainly either look up my name or look up the book, But the Heavens Never Cry, but it's www.gettingbeyondlifestuff.com, all one word.
Perfect. So. Awesome. Just so glad to know you and
likewise.
And grow in this journey with you. So thank you today for being here on Driven Women TV. We'd just like to thank again Chef Ralph of Simply Black and White Events and Catering, and for his beautiful set design, and our co-director Betty today, who helped on the show. FCTV has been such a wonderful partner for Driven Women TV, and we're really appreciative as we go into the new year. So we thank you.